Hi, my name is Kati Sowada, and I am a cognitive rehabilitation therapist at Brooks Rehabilitation Hospital in Jacksonville, Florida, in the United States. And I'm here today to talk a little bit about cognitive rehabilitation therapy and how it can provide hope after a diagnosis of encephalitis. I wanted to give a little background about my role as a lead cognitive rehabilitation therapist in our brain injury day treatment program. The program that I run is a comprehensive interdisciplinary program that meets Monday through Friday from 9 to 3. There are both individual and group based therapies that include cognitive rehabilitation therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, psychotherapy, and vocational counseling. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about cognition, the areas of cognition, what is cognitive rehabilitation therapy, and some rehabilitation tools and strategies. I'd like to ask the questions. Have you ever struggled to maintain your attention at the end of a workday or even a presentation? Stared at the cereal aisle of the grocery store and not been able to find that box of Cheerios? Run into an acquaintance at the mall and not recalled their name? Felt overwhelmed when asked to organize an event or cook dinner? These are functional examples of cognition in our day to day lives. And cognition is that process of knowing, discriminating between, and selection of relevant information, acquisition of information, understanding and retention, and the expression and application of knowledge in the appropriate situation. Simply put, cognition is the ability to make sense of our environment, and that includes both the outside world and our inner environment. Different cognitive domains include attention, visuospatial processing, language, memory, and executive skills. And unfortunately, brains don't grow on trees, so we can't just go pick a new one. So we need rehabilitation after injury or diagnosis. Cognitive rehabilitation therapy is twofold. It's both restorative and compensatory. So it includes the process of relearning cognitive skills that have been lost or altered as a result of damage to brain cells or altered brain chemistry. And if those skills cannot be relearned, the new ones have to be taught to enable a person to compensate for their lost cognitive functions. Why is cognitive rehabilitation therapy important? Well, cognitive problems are extremely common after encephalitis. Cognitive problems tend to resolve later than physical problems. Cognitive problems are invisible. Cognitive problems can prevent returning to work and independent living. Cognitive problems persist. Cognitive problems can lead to relationship difficulties. The goal of cognitive rehabilitation therapy is simply to improve the ability to carry out everyday tasks so it looks different for different individuals. How does it work? It's not quite as simple as this picture it would appear, just plugging back in connections, but it works based off the concept of neuroplasticity. And that means that the brain has a natural ability to adapt and change with time. And even after it has been injured, the brain can change by setting up new connections between neurons that carry messages within our brains. Plasticity is more likely to occur when there is stimulation of the neural system. So that just means the brain has to be active in order to adapt. Changes do not occur without exposure to stimulating environments that prompt the brain to work. And cognitive rehabilitation therapy does just that. And it sets in motion that process of adaptation and change. I explain neuroplasticity to individuals I work with, like my drive to work. I have been working at Brooks for 18 years, and I have a pretty set route that I take to get to work. Because I've been doing it for so long, sometimes I'll arrive in the parking lot and I think to myself, whoa, I was on autopilot. I sure hope I didn't roll through a stop sign. Now, let's say that one day I go to work and the route that I typically take has a road that's been shut down. Can I still get to work? I can. Am I going to have to take a new route? I am. Will that new route require me to use strategies like a map or my GPS or asking for directions? Probably so. And may it take a little bit longer? Again, probably so. But eventually, if the original route that I take never opens back up, this new route will become my new preferred pathway. And with time and with effort, I will eventually learn that route. And it may always take a little longer, but the route will still get me to work. Cognitive rehabilitation therapy teaches compensatory strategies. And those strategies include internal strategies that rely on a person themselves inside their head, and external strategies. And those are the tangible objects or devices that we can touch to help us achieve tasks. At the heart of cognitive rehabilitation therapy is the idea of insight and awareness. And insight and awareness is the ability for self reflection. It's to be aware of one's strengths and weaknesses, and it truly is key for successful rehabilitation. Intellectual awareness would be actually recognizing that you may have a deficit or a problem. I'll use the example of a memory deficit. And so I may say, okay, I have a memory deficit, but I don't really do anything about it. Emergent awareness is that next level of awareness. And that might be that I'm standing in the grocery store and I realize I don't know what I came here for. I know I came here for something, but I can't remember the items. Man, I guess my memory is not working the way that I would like it to. And the goal is to achieve anticipatory awareness, and that is where one has awareness of themselves, and they may think, "I know I have a memory deficit, and so I'm going to write a grocery list, and I'm going to bring that grocery list and with me to the store to be able to achieve the goal that I'm getting my groceries." Individuals that have difficulty with insight and awareness may tend to focus only on physical problems. They may demonstrate poor judgment, decreased problem solving skills, and relationship difficulties. Some tools and strategies to help with insight and awareness would be self rating. And that would include things like having an individual rate themselves on how well they think they're going to do on a task or how long they think a task is going to take. And then after the task is completed, rating themselves again and comparing themselves to their actual results. Videotaping is powerful feedback. Of course, must be done with consent, but it can be really powerful to see oneself on video. Feedback is crucial. Feedback from a loved one or a trusted therapist is so important to be able to provide that real time encouragement and or redirection as to how you're doing on a task. Self therapy logs. This is the tool that I use and I absolutely love them. So, after an individual has made a mistake or something hasn't gone quite as according to plan, I will have an individual chart what is going on in their environment at the time of that mistake. And in the environment includes both the external environment. Was it noisy? Was the television on? Was the dog barking? But also internal variables such as fatigue or hunger. And with time and doing these self therapy logs, an individual is truly able to see patterns as to why mistakes or when mistakes are more likely to occur, and therefore can adjust accordingly. Attention. Attention is at the heart and underlines all other cognitive skills. Attention is our ability to focus, sustain, and alternate and divide between mental resources. Individuals with difficulty with attention may present by being impulsive, having inappropriate social judgment, impaired memory, restlessness, a lack of insight, an inability to multitask, the feeling of being overwhelmed, stressed, or anxious, and potentially hypersensitive to outside stimuli. Some tools and strategies to help with this would be reducing distractions, so limiting the stimulation, minimizing anxiety, or any other internal distractor. I use the analogy of a stovetop here because a stovetop has a finite amount of burners. And I like to liken that to our working memory and to our attention, thinking of it as a stovetop. And if we have one stovetop that's occupied by anxiety, and another stovetop that's occupied by fatigue, and another stovetop that's occupied by pain, we are limited to the amount of working memory capacity and attentional capacity given at any time. So, if we can try to minimize these internal distractions, we've kind of opened up more burners of our working memory and attention to be able to work with. Completing one thing at a time, utilizing a timer, taking breaks, it's so key and crucial and code words. So knowing if I'm going into a situation where there may be a lot of stimulation, I have a code word that I can use with a loved one or a friend that lets them know that I need a break. Self-questioning, asking myself, am I on task? Am I on target? Being intentional about paying attention. I use this quote a lot, but it truly means that you have to be intentional. Know that I'm turning on my attention, that I'm really trying hard and focusing, and potentially consulting a physician for possible medication management. Memory. This is the ability to encode, store, and retrieve information for later use. Individuals with memory deficits may present by repeating themselves, missing appointments, forgetting to take medications, an inability to manage finance, difficulties maintaining relationships. Some internal tools and strategies would be verbal descriptions, visual imagery, chunking information, so breaking things down into smaller tasks, categorization of information, associations, rehearsal, PQRST strategies. This is a great strategy for recalling written information, where the P stands for preview, the Q question, the R read, the S state, and the T test. So that means we're taking a more active role in reading information to be able to recall it later. Pegging systems. These are my favorite. There's a body peg system that I absolutely love, and that's where I teach individuals a pre established set of pegs that they're able to hang information off of for later use. Some external strategies to help with memory or writing information down, using memory books, using planners and schedules, post it notes, alarms, list making, whiteboards, smartphones and devices, and adaptation of environment. That could mean everything has a place and everything is in its place. So, meaning I hang my keys on the hook by the door, I put my purse in a special location in the house, etc. Executive skills. This is the ability to be goal oriented. It includes things like goal setting, initiation, so that's start or the gas pedal of our brain, which is the ability to start and carry through with a plan without being prompted. Impulse control, that would be the brake pad of our brain, so the ability to stop a behavior or thought that might be inappropriate or out of context. Planning and organization, so that's establishing steps required to complete a task. That includes prioritizing, sequencing, and carrying out a task. Self monitoring, that ability to assess the appropriateness and effectiveness of a performance on a task. And metacognition, so kind of knowing about knowing. I refer to the executive skills as the conductor of our brain, the frontal lobe, right? So it's all of these varying cognitive tasks pulled together in sequence, playing at the right time, at the right cadence. Difficulties with executive skills can present themselves by difficulty understanding the views of others, being rigid in our thinking or a lack of flexibility, difficulty recognizing the main idea, difficulty with turn taking, difficulty giving or receiving feedback. One may appear self centered. They might give too little or too much information. They may have difficulty switching topics or tasks. An individual could appear lazy. I hear that sometimes from loved ones or caregivers that their survivor comes across as lazy, not motivated to do things around the house or to be engaged in the environment. Oftentimes, that's a misunderstanding. It's truly that the individual has difficulty with initiation and getting started. They may not be able to break down the steps of a task, so it seems overwhelming or daunting, and therefore they just do not begin. An inability to monitor oneself or accurately appraise one's performance, so kind of having that helicopter view of oneself, and an inability to establish realistic goals. Some strategies to help with executive skills would be to make a list of things that need to be done and prioritize, breaking down tasks into smaller steps, thinking of the end goal, and then working backwards. GPA, this stands for goal, plan, anticipate. So I may have an individual set a goal and then come up with a plan as to how they are going to achieve it. Afterwards, though, I want them to anticipate that something may not go as planned. Therefore, they come up with an alternative plan that would address those anticipates. Brainstorming, talking through things aloud, rewarding themselves. Rewards are a huge motivator. Rewards can be small, simple things like setting a timer after a task is complete and just enjoying 5 minutes of peaceful silence. Or it could be something like a walk or an ice cream cone. Emotions and behavior. I like this quote, and it says to maximize treatment potential, we believe cognitive rehabilitation must integrate both cognitive and emotional interventions and attend to the belief systems about and effective responses to cognitive change. So, as we discussed earlier, cognition is the ability to make sense of our environment, including both the outside world and our inner environment. Emotions, behavior, and cognition all have a strong interaction with one another. Emotional or behavioral difficulties that could present themselves via irritability, depression, anxiety, emotional lability, emotional flattening or blunting, being apathetic, and or even anger. Tools and strategies to help with this would be education, recognizing stress and recognizing triggers, relaxation techniques, reassuring thinking, relating assertively, having healthy sleep routines, healthy eating, socialization, and referrals to psychologists and counselors as needed. I'd like to end with what the goal of cognitive rehabilitation therapy is not. And it is not to become the same person we were before. I like to use the ancient Japanese art form of golden repair, known as kintsugi, to stress this point. So, this art form took pottery, and when pottery broke, they didn't discard it or throw it away or determine that it was unusable. Instead, they glued the pottery back together, and they glued it by using a gold dust and a lacquer so that it actually accentuated the cracks and it showed beauty in the brokenness. And I think this art form really helps shape our own perspectives about the scars that we bear. And it shows that profound strength and beauty is found in imperfection. And I think after a diagnosis and an injury, it's really important to refocus our attention from what should have been towards creating something that is more beautiful with what remains. Our scars are part of us and our journey to become whole. And we truly can take those scars, learn strategies, learn tools, learn how to become better versions of ourselves. I want to thank you for your time. This is my email address if anyone has any specific questions that they would like to reach out and ask. Thank you so much for your time.